5-minute countdown. This is KF5JHA. 5 minutes until Skynet. By the way, Houston's ahead, 5-0, top of the 6th.
This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
Minutes, 2 minutes countdown to Skynet. KF5JHA.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That's correct, sir.
Skynet.
Twenty seconds until Skynet. Houston has control of the spacecraft. KF5JHA. anyone need to use repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? Five Juliet Hotel Alpha. My name is Chaz, and I'll be your net control. Isn't that interesting? For this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m., well, at least for the last 11 plus years, concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs to become more familiar with the nighttime, daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter this net at any time by using the pro sign break break and your call sign. Is there any communications that are emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. So that means you need to have permission from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID their end of your transmissions, such as this. This is KF5JHA. Again, this is a weekly net that operates on 146.88 megahertz with a private line tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible with W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, live audio and video links are available online. Go to w5fc.org right now for the complete list. About the net. Now, all amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long, well, give or take 2 hours or so. It is structured in several parts. Now, here's an interesting thing that's going to happen tonight. Everything's going to go in reverse order. Well, at least reasonably. Yeah, we're getting close to Halloween, so why not? I don't know how we do a 783 round first because we don't know who's on air right now. But the next one would be astronomy questions and answers, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, recent astronomical discoveries, space launches for the week, Constellation of the week, space exploration and space history, what's up, discussion topic of the evening, National Space Society events, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, and then general announcements actually going to come at the very end tonight. Interesting. Once again, all amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. Okay, let's see. We're going to start in reverse order. We're only going to take Echolink check-ins at the present time. So Echolink only. Let's come in groups of 3. So what I'd like you to do is to give your call sign phonetically, slowly. I only do this every once in a while. And your name and your location where you're transmitting it from. So only, Echolink only, check-ins, please. For the first 3 people on Echolink, please come now with your call sign.
Kilo Delta Whiskey, John in southern Norman, Oklahoma.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo. Sorry, Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, J near Westford. Normally, I get a chance to see if radio works before doing Echolink.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
Okay, let's stop it right there for the moment. We've got 3 people already checked in over at Echolink. John, Jay, and Kelly, thank you so much. I see you on Echolink. There's, I think, another couple of people, but they might check in when we do the regular RF check-in. So any other people on Echolink that might like to check in, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and your location. Okay, great. Let's see now. Now, we're going to take the general check-ins. Now, if you have low power or short time, you have to wait till the very end here. But general check-ins now come in groups of 3. Give me your call sign phonetically. You can write these things down. And your name and your location. So the first 3 on general check-ins, please come now.
Bravo, Bravo, 5 November. Irving and Bill, 10-5 BB. India 5, uniform, Juliet, Dustin, Dallas.
Fort Worth, Virginia, November, Victor 5, Foxtrot.
Thank you so much. Bill, you did your call sign backwards. That's awesome, but you also did forwards, too. Dustin, welcome, and Virginia, thank you so much. All right. The next 3 come with your call signs phonetically, slowly, your name, and where you're located from. The next 3 people, please.
This is Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich in Rockwall, AG 5 p.m.
Hello, Echo 5, India, Charlie, X-Ray, Tom. Lewis, Bill.
Kilo Golf 5, Charlie, November Alpha, Dave in Fort Worth.
Well, thank you, Rich. That was very nice and slow. Welcome, Tom. You'll hear a lot from Tom this evening. And Dave, welcome to Skynet. Okay, we're up to 10 people so far. That's including myself. Come now with the next 3 people. Your call sign phonetically and slowly. Your name and your location, please. Next 3 people.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite. This is Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richardson.
Carrollton.
Let's hold off on that for a minute. We have a double. Robert G1. Clay was before that, N5OF. Clay's a neighbor of mine. So whoever was transmitting with Robert, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and your location. Robert 1, you did not.
This was Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James Carrollton.
Okay, James, I've got you down. Very good. All right, the next 3 people, Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location, please. Right, I guess we are up to now the low power and the short time check-ins. Yes, I've saved the best for last. So come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and your location if you are short time or low power.
This is Sierra Uniform Golf 5 Whiskey, close southwest Dallas, GUS. Low power.
Let's pause right now. Gus, you won on that one. Thank you. You gave your call sign backwards as well. Yeah, okay, fine. Whoever was transmitting with Gus, you lost. Please come now with your call sign phonetically and your name and your location. Yeah, I saw, Gus, that you put yourself on the opposite end of Dallas County. Yes, go ahead. But yeah, the person who transmitted with Gus, please come now with your call sign. Okay, didn't hear anything. If there's anyone on any mode, either low power, short time, general check-in, or if you'd like to check in for this part of the check-in for Skynet, come now with your call sign phonetically and your name and your location. All right, there's somebody on Echolink that I haven't checked in yet, but I've got you checked in. Tony, yes, I've got you checked in. Now, are there any people that have remarks or questions? I don't see a way of having any fills, but okay. Now, does anybody have any questions, astronomical or space-wise? We've got a few people on here on the net already that have some knowledge for that. Let's start with some questions right up front. This would be the astronomical questions and answers that we normally have at the end. But please come now with your call sign if you have any questions or comments.
For Victor 5, Foxtrot.
I believe that's Virginia. Please come now with your question.
Okay, thank you, Chaz, for taking questions first. Well, I have an interesting situation in my current studies that I'm in. My online university where I'm taking classes has okayed me for it. The issue is, I took astronomy a long time ago. I'm not going to say how long ago, but it's been a while. I'm taking an online, voluntary online self-study crash course in astronomy, which is very helpful and very informative, and it makes me realize I've forgotten a lot, and I can't believe I wasn't more interested in it when I was taking it before. It makes me remember when I was a kid and I had a telescope, and it's made me think about trying to acquire a telescope. And and a friend of mine has some telescopes he's wanting to possibly sell. He has a 12-inch telescope for a really good price, and I'm curious what other people might recommend for a telescope for someone who's not an astronomer, but also not like a scratch novice. When I was a kid, my telescope I had when I was 13 was a very low power, inexpensive refracting telescope, and I'd like to get possibly a nicer reflecting telescope. And I was just curious if anybody had any recommendations or advice about a reasonable telescope for somebody like me. This is B5F.
That's a wonderful question. I'm going to see if somebody out there would like to answer that. I have lots of opinions about that, and I also have some resources I can direct you toward. But let's see if somebody else would like to talk about buying a telescope, your first one, or one that is an upgrade. Please come now with your call sign if you'd like to answer Virginia's question. There must be some shy people out there. Oh, yeah, on Echolink, JJ, if you put your initials in there backwards, it's still JJ. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, I'm going to be distracted between Echolink and online and the series and maybe even a football game. Anyway, so Virginia, there's a couple of different resources I'm going to recommend to you. If you go to texasastro.org, that's the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website, they actually have information on how to buy a telescope, how to buy binoculars, and much more than that. With telescopes, there's a lot of different things that you need to identify. One is, where are you going to use the telescope? Is that going to be something in your backyard, or is that something that you're going to transport? Can you transport it? Can you handle the transportation of it? Also, what do you want to look at? If you're looking at the planets, maybe a refractor might be the best, or something called a Cassegrain. That's a catadioptic that's using lenses and mirrors. Refractor uses primarily lenses. If you're looking at faint, fuzzy things like galaxies and nebulas and star clusters, well, you might want to get a reflector or something called a Dobsonian. That's a particular kind of reflector, because that will be a bigger lens, actually it's a mirror, to collect fainter light from much more distant objects. Now, some people actually own both refractors and reflectors, so they can have the best of all different worlds. Anyway, Virginia, did that help you a little bit? This is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet.
Yes, thank you very much. I will definitely read up and decide what my needs are. Maybe as I get further into my directed studies. The little course I'm taking is actually really good, and it can be taken for college credit. So it's actually a really excellent intro course, and further into it, I'll get more clear on exactly what I might want to have. But that does help me, and I will certainly look at the Texas Astronomical Society guide there. And if anybody else has anything they want to add later on, please don't hesitate. Thank you very much for answering my question. Back to net in V5F.
Well, you're welcome, and buying a telescope is almost like buying a car, or a vehicle, I should say. If you want speed, you'd get one type. If you want economy and fuel, you'd get a different kind. If you want to haul rocks, that would be a different kind of vehicle. So, same thing goes with telescopes. Yeah, I believe that is her call sign. John, he's online on Echolink. I believe Virginia's call sign, I have it written down as ND5S. Is that correct, Virginia?
That's November Victor 5 Foxtrot.
Oops, I had it written down. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom, for correcting us, because he corrected us on Echolink. Okay. Next segment, which is in reverse order than we normally do. The segment that we have coming up next is called Visible Satellite Passages over the next couple of days. We usually have Tom do that. So, Tom, KE5ICX, or should I go backwards, XCI5EK? That's not in code. That's just being reversed tonight. Tom, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Chaz, and thank you for doing the net. Made my streaming interesting, but we'll make it work for the one person who's watching. Here we go. October 31st, that would be tonight. Long March 5B from Wencheng, China will launch. The Chinese Long March 5B rocket will launch the Megatian laboratory module for the third major element of the Chinese space station in low Earth orbit. And oh boy, we get to wait for the first stage to come down somewhere. On November 1st, there'll be an Atlas V launch from SLC-3E from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. The United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket, designated AV-098, will launch Joint Polar Satellite System 2, or JPSS-2, and Polar Orbiting Weather Satellite NASA and NOAA, for NASA and NOAA, built by Northrop Grumman. JPSS-2 will provide global weather observations for medium and long-term forecasts. The Atlas V will launch on a low Earth orbit flight test of an inflatable decelerator. You heard me right. The WAFTID re-entry aeroshell vehicle will be on a test flight. It is a joint project between NASA and ULA. The rocket will fly in the 401 vehicle configuration with a 4-meter fairing, no solid rocket boosters, and a single engine. November 1st, we have a new Falcon Heavy. I believe this is the third one. This will launch from Launch Complex 39A at Cape Kennedy. The SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket will launch the USSF-44 mission for the U.S. Space Force. The mission is expected to deploy 2 spacecraft payloads directly into geosynchronous orbit, one of which is the military Tetra 1 microsatellite. Falcon Heavy's 2 side boosters will land on landing zone 1 and 2 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and the core stage will be expended. November 2nd and 3rd, the Falcon 9 Hotbird 13G will launch. This is the Falcon 9 rocket with the Hotbird 13G television broadcasting satellite for Eutelsat and Hotbird Eutelsat, period. Hotbird 13G is the second satellite to be built on Airbus's new Aerostar Neo all-electric spacecraft design and will provide television broadcast services to Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. The Falcon 9 first stage will land on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Full launches on November 6th. There is, from Pad 0A, Wallops Island, Virginia, a Northrop Grumman Antares rocket will launch the 19th Cygnus cargo freighter on the 18th operational cargo delivery flight to the International Space Station. The mission is known as NG-18. Flying in Antares 230 Plus configuration with 2 RD-181 first stage engines in the Castor 30XL second stage. And halfway around the world, Long March 7 will launch the Tinsao 5 resupply ship to the dock with the Chinese space station. The automated freight cargo ship is the 4th resupply freighter. We got more. On November 8th, we've got Falcon 9 launch. Will launch the Galaxy 31 and 32 commercial communication satellites for Intelsat. That's from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force build station. Then, on November 14th, are you ready? Take a big breath. We'll see if this happens. Pad Launch Complex 39B, Cape Kennedy Space Center, Florida. NASA's Space Launch System heavy lift rocket will launch on its first test flight of the uncrewed Orion spacecraft. The mission, known as Artemis 1, will place the Orion spacecraft into orbit around the Moon before the capsule returns to Earth for splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. 2 small CubeSat rideshare payloads will also launch on the Artemis 1 mission, delayed from February, March, April, May, and June, and was scrubbed in August by engine cooling issue, and scrubbed on September 3rd for a hydrogen leak. And September 23rd will allow more time to prepare for tanking tests, which is what caused it to up the last time. That's it, Chaz. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Actually, tonight is mainly a Tom and Chaz show because I think we're doing most of the segments, if not all of them. Yeah. Tom, do you want to, instead of Brenda, because evidently she's got some track responsibilities as an admiral to do, would you like to do something about some sort of astronomical discoveries? KF5JJ, back to KE5ICX.
Yes, I can. And I was missing, so let me set that up. I had a little, I have to do a little change before I get started. Let's see here. What can I do? Okay, let me do that. Let me do that, and let me do that. Okay, what Brenda gave us was cosmic rays drive galaxy winds. Astronomers using the National Space Foundation's ELE, the Jansky Very Large Array, have discovered an important new clue about how galaxies put the brakes on various episodes of star formation. A new study of the neighboring galaxy M33 indicates that fast-moving cosmic ray electrons can drive winds that blow away the gas needed to form new stars. Such winds are responsible for slowing the rates of star formation as galaxies evolve over time. However, shock waves from supernova explosions and energetic black hole-powered jets of material coming from the galactic cores have been considered the primary drivers of those winds. Cosmic rays were thought to be minor contributors, particularly in galaxies like M33, and have regions of prolific star formation. We've seen galactic winds driven by cosmic rays in our own Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy, which have much weaker rates of star formation, but not before in a galaxy such as M33, said Fatima Tabetbui, you try and say that name, the Institute of Research in Fundamental Sciences. He says an international team of scientists made detailed multi-length VLA observations of M33, a spiral galaxy nearly 3 million light years away and part of the local group of galaxies that includes the Milky Way. They also used data from previous observations of the VLA, Isenberg radio telescope in Germany, and millimeter-wide visible light and infrared telescopes. Stars much more massive than our sun speed through their life cycles, ultimately exploding as supernovae. The explosive shock waves can accelerate particles to nearly the speed of light, creating cosmic rays. Enough of these cosmic rays can build pressure that drives winds carrying away the gas needed to form, continue forming stars. The VLA observations indicate the cosmic rays in M33 are escaping the regions where they are born, making them able to drive more extensive winds. Based on their observations, the astronomers concluded that numerous supernova explosions and supernova remnants in M33's giant complexes of prolific star formation made such cosmic ray-driven winds more likely. This means that cosmic rays probably are a more general cause of galactic winds, particularly at earlier times in the universe's history when star formation was happening at a much higher rate. She adds, this mechanism thus becomes more important factor in understanding the evolution of galaxies. So Tabatabai, Cotton, and their colleagues are reporting their findings in the 25th October issue of Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society. The National Radio Astronomy Observatory is a facility of the National Science Foundation operated under the cooperative agreement of associated universities. And that was reported on Science Daily on October 25th, 2022. That's all I got for you, Chaz. KE5ICX, back to you.
Thank you so much, Tom. One night ago, I observed through a telescope M33. That's one of the close-by galaxies to us. M31, M32, and M110 are also close-by galaxies to us. Now, we have a couple of close-by galaxies that we cannot observe from here in the North American continent. The large and small Magellanic Clouds can't be observed from here, but they're pretty close by as well, closer than Andromeda or M33. Okay, Tom, I think we skipped something. How about visible satellite passages? Can you come back with that? And then after that, I'll take some check-ins, and then we'll do Miss Caroline's Constellation of the Week. But, Tom, do you have visible satellite passages?
Well, I've got everything. Hold on, let me get down to that one. I had to restore my script. Wait a minute. Where is it? Hold on. Where are they? Hang on. I'm still looking. I know they're here. I put them right here. Maybe they rolled under the table. Hey. Put all these in, but they're not. Oh, yes, they are. Okay, I found them. Hold on. All right, first off, we've got the Tiangong space station, which we just mentioned, as it continues to grow. There are 3 tachyonauts up there. There are 3 passes that are quite good. One is November 4th with a minus 2.2 magnitude. It'll be out of the west-southwest at 7:18 in the morning, reach its highest point at 7:21 at 82 degrees. It'll fall to 10 degrees at 7:24. The 5th also has a pretty good pass, minus 1.4 magnitude. This will be out of the south at 48 degrees at 6:21, about 1 minute and a half later, and it'll fall at 6:24 to the south-southeast. Then, November 6th, minus 1.7 magnitude, 5:55 a.m. out of the west. It'll reach its highest point at 45 degrees at 5:57, and it'll fall to 6 o'clock, even at 10 degrees. Next is the mysterious X-37B winged unmanned shuttle that is in orbit right now. October 30th and 31st have a good pass, 1.8 magnitude, 1910 out of the west-northwest, reach its highest point at, well, that's the 31st, let me get that one, 1912 at 30 degrees out of the southwest, and it'll fall at 1915 at 10 degrees. The one that's really good is the October 30th, minus 0.1 of magnitude, 1909 out of the west-northwest. It'll reach its highest point at 1912 at 80 degrees, and it'll fall at 1914 to the southeast. Chaz, that's all I got for you this evening. KE5ICX.
Those that are not in the know, 80 degrees is pretty high overhead. 90 degrees is straight overhead, so that one should be pretty easy to see, especially at that magnitude. All right, right now, let's see if we have any more check-ins for Skynet. Right now, I'm only at 16 people. Joe, I have checked you in. You're over on Echolink, KG5ZMG. I've got him checked in. That's number 16. Do we have any more check-ins? Come now phonetically, slowly, with your call sign, and then your name and your location. Tonight's Skynet.
Hello, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob, Farmers Branch.
Alice, need Tony, Mike, Tango 5, Tango November.
Garland, KF5PGM.
Let's hold it right there. Tony, I've got you. Jacob, I've got you. I'm not sure who is transmitting with Tony, but please come now with your call sign phonetically and your name and your location. Tony 1, you lost, so please come now again.
Hello, India 5, Papa Golf Mike, Travis, and Garland.
Travis, I've got you on our list. Okay, are there any other check-ins for Skynet tonight? Come now with your call sign phonetically and your name and your location. Thank you. Once again, thank you, Tony, for sending in reverse order of your call sign. I've figured it out anyway. All right, so Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is the next thing up. That's me. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning until 2012, from 20 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Such are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations. So Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's constellation this week is Lacerta, the Lizard. Lacerta is the 68th constellation in size, occupying an area of 201 square degrees. Lacerta contains no Messier objects. The name Lacerta does not come from mythology. The constellation of Lacerta the Lizard was created by Polish astronomer Johannes Helvellus, 1687, to fill a void between Cassiopeia and Cygnus. In addition to the name Lacerta, which is Latin for lizard, he also offered up the name Leto or Stellian for this constellation. Stellian is a type of lizard that has star-like spots that lives in the area surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. The name Stellian is derived from the word meaning stella, which means, of course, star. Even though a starry lizard seems more appropriate than a plain lizard for a constellation, the name Lacerta won out, and we still call this constellation Lacerta today. Mr. Slide Master, that would be Tom. I hope he was on slide number 1. Slide number 2 are the jokes of the week. This is what you really want to stay around. How far can a dog run into the forest? Oh, that's a question from John. The answer to that question is, how far can a dog run? Answer. All right, my jokes are, where does a lizard go after it drops its tail? That would be to the retail store. Now, Tom had suggested that I do the answers and then let you come up with a question, sort of like the great Karnak. You know, Johnny Carson, he did the answers and come up with the questions later on. Okay. Bob the cat loves hunting lizards, but he never kills them. You fill in the rest of that? It's just all about details. It's details. How much does a lizard weigh? Depends on the scales. Yeah. Oh, yeah, John, you're right. I guess Jeopardy has the answers. The answers are in the form of a question. Yeah, you're right. What do you call a lizard that tells damaging lies about you? It would be a slandermander, not a salamander, a slandermander. Doctor said to put a baby monitor in the crib with a baby. But I don't think lizards make very good pets for babies. You see a monitor as a lizard and, okay, if I have to explain them, they're no good. And the last one for this segment, or this part of this segment, what do you call a dead prehistoric lizard? a dinosaur. This is KF5, JJ, and this is Skynet, and I'm your net control. Slide Master, slide number 3, please. Alpha Lacerta, the brightest star in Lacerta, shining at about 3.8 magnitude, is a visual double star where the companion is about 36 arc seconds away from Alpha, shining at a magnitude 11.8. That's much fainter. The two stars are not really associated with one another in space, but they're simply appearing along the same line of sight. Row 47, also known as HR 8588, is a multiple star system with 5 stars in all. The two brightest stars shine at 5.9 and 9.8 and are easily split. Higher magnification is required to see all 5 stars. Dave Hutchinson recommends 200 power or more and mentions that 2 of the stars show a nice color contrast. Lacerta is in the Astronomical League Double Star Club. It's another easy-to-split double star. The primary shines at 5.7, and a magnitude of 6.5 is the companion. That's 22.3 arc seconds away. Dave Hutchinson writes that this is a good double star for checking your eye's ability to determine differences in magnitude. In his Deep Sky Wonders column, the late Walter Scott Houston notes that the 2 more stars of 9th and 10th magnitude lie about 82 arc seconds and 49 arc seconds from the primary and may be part of the same physical star system. Headmaster, slide number 4, please. NGC 7243 is an open star cluster. The first of 3 mentioned in an article at the Spectrum from the Dallas, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas newsletter called the Spectrum. Dave Hutchinson mentions that Stephen G. O'Meara writes about the observing of this cluster with the naked eye in his book, The Caldwell Objects. If sharp-eyed observers can see the cluster without optical aid, then it should probably be a fairly good binocular object. So that's why the NGC 7243 makes it into the Binocular Deep Sky Observing Club and even in the Urban Club. Urban Club, that means you should be able to observe it with a telescope from inside the city. Dave Hutchinson writes that this cluster is obvious when observing it at low magnification, but with higher magnification, it begins to blend in with the background stars. So really, a smaller telescope might be best. Both O'Meara and Walter Scott Houston mentioned that it's a nice double star in the center of the cluster. That's called Struve 2890. Okay, NGC 7209 is slide number 5. NGC 7209 is the Star Lizard Cluster. What a great name for an object that's in the lizard. Is an open cluster that's easy enough to make out with binoculars, and it's in the Deep Sky and Urban Clubs for the Astronomical League. It can be resolved with small apertures, and Walter Scott Houston notes that at low power it stands out nicely from the Milky Way. This agrees with Dave Hutchinson's observation that the cluster is best viewed at low power. And this is KF5, JJ, and this is Skynet. Yes, I'm your net control. Slide Master, slide number 6, please. There are a few more Astronomical League Observing Program objects in Lacerta. In fact, I believe there's a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 75 different programs, most of which have about 100 objects. There's one of them that actually has 400 objects. Oh, there's a second one that has 400 objects. But most of them have around 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects from most of the observing programs each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin from the Astronomical League in about a year. And Slide Master, slide number 7, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Lacerta the Lizard. And I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Des Harwell for their research and words on deep sky objects that I've used, borrowed, and I steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Oops, I didn't put in what next week's constellation is. I guess I'll maybe look that up. I'm in the next few minutes. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Okay, we have another segment to go through, and, well, it's usually either Brenda or Kelly, but it's Brenda's turn, but she's not here, so guess who we're turning to? Tom, it's all yours again. KE5ICX, after you've been given a break of talking, you get to talk again. All yours again.
Yes, thank you, Chaz, and thank you for nicknaming me the Brenda Substitute, or BS. So here we go. I got pictures, too, if you're watching the feed. On October 24th, 1946, the first image of Earth from outer space was taken by a B-2 number 13 suborbital space flight. The first photos of Earth from space at 65 miles were taken by a 35 number 13 rocket. Both the rocket and the camera were destroyed when they crashed back to Earth, but the film, protected by a steel case, survived. October 24th, 1968, it was the last flight of the X-15. Bill Dana celebrated his final X-15 flight, but for program engineers, it was business as usual. Data from Flight 199 collected and reduced as plans were completed for the final flight of the program. Unfortunately, due to a series of technical problems and weather issues, that 200 flights never took place, and the program soon terminated. The X-15, however, did not fade from obscurity. Perhaps the most successful research aircraft program in U.S. history, the X-15 program left a legacy of scientific data and aeronautical firsts that remains unparalleled. The program generated more than 760 technical reports, earned honors and awards for the X-15 team, and contributed to numerous advances in aerospace technology and in the areas of materials, hypersonic aerodynamics, astronomy, and spaceflight. Only two flights, 90 and 91, piloted by Walker, exceeded the Kármán line, the internationally recognized 100-kilometer altitude used by the FAI to denote the edge of space. The airplane that made the first and last flights of the program now resides in the Smithsonian Institute's National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. And there's a picture of it on my Now here are some astronaut birthdays for you and some notable folks. We have Susan Kilrain. She was born October. Was on STS-83 and 94. One of my favorite characters is Rusty Schweigert, who was born on October 25th, 1935. He was on Apollo 9. We have Tina Cardman, October 26th, 1988. She was part of NASA Group 22. I guess she did not fly. Next is Stephen Robinson, born October 26, 1955. He was on STS-85, 95, 114, and 130. Barry Hart was born in 1946. He was on STS-41C. Stephen Nagel was born in 1946 on October 27th. He was on STS-51G, 61A, 37, and 55. And finally, we had Michael Baker, born October 27th, 1953. He was on STS 43, 52, 68, and 81. Now on to news. NASA and ESA agree on the next steps to return Mars samples to Earth. The next step in an unprecedented campaign to return scientifically selected samples from Mars was made on October 19th with a formal agreement between NASA and its partner, the European Space Agency, or ESA. The two agencies will proceed with the creation of the Sample Tube Depot on Mars. The Sample Depot, or cache, will be at Three Forks, an area located near the base of an ancient river delta of Jezero crater. This cache will contain samples from carefully selected rocks on the surface of Mars, samples that can help tell the story of Jezero evolved. It could perhaps even contain signs of ancient life. The scientists believe the core samples from the delta's fine-grained sedimentary rocks deposited in the lake billions of years ago are the mostly likely to contain indicators of whether microbial life existed when Mars' climate was much different than what it was and is today. Marsquake. NASA's InSight lander recorded a magnitude 4 Marsquake last December 24th, but scientists learned only later the cause of that quake, a micrometeoroid strike estimated to be one of the biggest seen on Mars since NASA began exploring the cosmos. What's more, the meteoroid excavated boulder-sized chunks of ice buried closer to the Martian equator than ever found before, a discovery that with implications for NASA's future plans to send astronauts to the Red Planet. Scientists determined the quake resulted from meteoroid impact when they looked at before and after images from NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, or MRO, and spotted a new yawning crater, offering a rare opportunity to see how a large impact shook the ground on Mars. The event and its effects are detailed in 2 reports published Thursday, October 27th, in the journal Science. The meteoroid is estimated to have spanned 16 to 39 feet, small enough that it would have burned up in Earth's atmosphere, but not in Mars' thin atmosphere, which is just 1% as dense as our planet. The impact is a region called Amazonas Planitia, blasted a crater roughly 492 feet across and 70 feet deep. Some of the ejecta thrown from the impact threw as far as images and seismic data documenting the event. This is believed to be one of the largest craters ever witnessed forming any place in the solar system. Many larger craters exist on the Red Planet, but they are significantly older and predate any Mars mission. And something spooky is happening at the edge of the solar system, just in time for Halloween. Scientists have discovered something spooky and strange occurring on the edge of the solar system. The heliopause, the boundary between the heliosphere, the bubble of solar wind encompassing the solar system, and interstellar medium, the material between the stars, appears to be ripping and creating oblique angles in an unexpected manner. The general concept that the heliopause changes shape is not new. Over the past decade, researchers have determined that it is not static. They made discovery using data from Voyager 1 and 2, the only 2 spacecraft to exit the heliosphere thus far, as well as NASA's Interstellar Boundary Explorer, or IBEX, satellite, which studies the emissions of energetic neutral atoms, or ENAs, that are created when solar winds and interstellar medium interact. In reviewing the data, the journeys of Voyager 1 and 2, scientists discovered that the heliopause changed dramatically in a very short period of time. This helps to explain why there is such a large gap between the 2 probes' entrances into interstellar space, which happened in 2012 and 2018, respectively. That kind of movement by heliopause also clashes with the models. In a paper published October 10th in the journal Nature Astronomy, the researchers call these discrepancies intriguing and potentially controversial. And that's it, Chaz. Back to you, KEX.
Thank you so much, Tom. You know what? Why don't you take a break, because the next segment's called What's Up? And that's usually done by Chaz. Oh, I have to turn that over to myself. Okay. And this is KF5JHA. Slide Master, that would be Tom. Yes, he's doing slides on the video link as well as talking and having to do something up with me, I guess. I never called you BS over the air, but yeah, I've done that on a phone call recently. Okay. He's Brenda's substitute, BS. Slide Master, slide number 8. This is Tez, yes. My degree's in astrophysics, and I work at the astrophysics labs and the geology labs at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus, and we call this segment of Skynet Was Up. Slide Master, slide number 9. On October the 25th, that was a few days ago, the moon was new. So the current phase of the moon is a waxing crescent. Did you see it tonight? I didn't. It was cloudy here. But today, on October 29th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 368,290 kilometers. On November the 1st, the moon is at its first quarter. The moon is full on November the 8th, and there will be a total lunar eclipse. More on the eclipse in just a few moments. On November the 14th, the moon is at apogee, which is a point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 404,921 kilometers. Slide Masters, slide number 10, please. October, I should say the month of October, was stuffed full of meteor showers and meteors, with 4 minor meteor showers and 1 major meteor shower. November has 3 minor. I'll have to tell you things that are even off script that I heard last night. The northern toroid meteor shower peaks on the night of November the 11th and 12th with around 5 meteors per hour. The famous Leonid meteor shower will peak on the night of November 17th and 18th with between 20 to 50 meteors per hour. Now, in the year 2032 or 2033, the Leonid meteor shower could produce over 1,000 meteors per hour. Now, I've got to tell you about something I heard at the Astronomy Club meeting last night. It looks like there could possibly be a peak in the Leonid meteor shower that could be hundreds of meteors, but just a few days after its peak. There's some research that indicates maybe around the 22nd or so of November that there could be a lot of meteors that come in from this debris field. So we'll keep watch of the predictions, and I'll keep you informed on Skynet over the next couple of weeks about those events. Now, the Alpha Monocerid meteor shower will peak on the night of the 20th, 21st, with around a handful of meteors per hour. But it could spike up to over 400 meteors per hour. The November Orionid meteor shower will peak on the night of the 27th, 28th, with a handful of meteors per hour again. Now, more information about meteor showers can be found at the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net, or the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org. Slide Master, slide number 11, please. November the 1st, the southern evening sky, you'll be able to spot the moon with the planet Saturn just above the moon in this conjunction. Slide Master, slide number 12. Just 3 evenings later, on November the 4th, just below the bright planet Jupiter, you'll find the moon. Yep, the moon travels from Saturn to Jupiter in just 3 days. It's just a point of view thing. Slide Master, slide number 13. On November the 6th, we return to standard time. So the phrase spring forward and fall back tells us what to do. In the fall, we turn our clocks back 1 hour. This craziness of changing from standard time to daylight time is a result of using daylight saving time. Yes, it's a singular, daylight saving time during wars and the oil crisis back in the 1970s, and shortly thereafter it became a permanent thing. There have been multiple bills in the Texas state legislature and the U.S. legislature to either stay on daylight time permanently or on standard time permanently, but so far nothing has happened. I'll remind you during next week's Skynet to turn your clocks back. You see, you get an extra hour next week during Skynet. Maybe Skynet should last an hour longer next week. Okay. Slide Master, slide number 14. This is KF5JJ. Slide Master, number 14. About 9 days from now, there's a total lunar eclipse on November the 8th in the early morning. The eclipse begins at 2:02 a.m. Central Standard Time when the moon enters the lighter part of the Earth shadow called the penumbra. At 3:09 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon enters the umbral shadow, which is the darker part of the Earth's shadow, and that's called totality. When totality begins, is when it's completely inside. That'll happen at 4:17 a.m. The middle of the eclipse is at 4:59 and 52 a.m. Central Standard Time. The moon begins to leave the umbral shadow. Now, at 6:49, the moon leaves the umbral shadow completely and is only in the penumbra shadow of the Earth. Now, for us in North Texas, the sunrise, which is also moonset, is around 6:55 a.m., so we won't get to see the very end of the eclipse. Now, all you really need are your two eyes to enjoy the eclipse, but a pair of binoculars or a telescope will enhance the event. We still have another week of Skynet before that happens. We'll talk more about that next week. Slide Master, slide number 15. November the 11th is when you find the conjunction of the moon and Mars taking place in the eastern evening sky. It's later in the evening. Mars doesn't come up till, well, right now it comes up right around 10 o'clock. By then it'll be coming up about 9:30 or, oh, no, daylight time. It'll be about 8:30 or so. Slide Master, slide number 16. On November the 30th, Mars will be at its closest approach to the Earth since 26 months ago. On December the 7th, Mars will be at opposition, which means it's 180 degrees away from the sun in the sky. Now, I'll talk more about this event over the next few weeks, but the reason why the closest approach and the opposition or different dates has to do with Mars being in an elliptical orbit and the Earth being in an elliptical orbit. If we're both in circular orbits, they'd both be at the same time. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 17, please. Next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, November the 18th. Had one just last night. And the meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas and also held on Zoom. The featured speaker will be Robert Reeves, and his topic will be about the moon. He's a famous and world-famous photographer of the moon. It's the closest thing to us, and you should go out and take a look at it on a regular basis. The Saturday night public observing sessions have begun again. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night so that there would be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. This is the fifth Saturday. There's no observing sessions. Now, you can check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. Now, do any of you out there have any questions? Or maybe you have a need for a fill on anything that I've talked about. Come now with your call sign. Oh, you could even have a general astronomy question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, so as the moon waned at the middle of October, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next segment, oh, I'm doing the next one. Safe and keep looking up so that you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. I guess the topic of that's me. Slide Master, slide number 20, please. Before I go on to the discussion topic of the evening, are there any people out there on Skynet that haven't checked in that would like to get credit for tonight's participation? Come now with your call sign phonetically, slowly, and your name and your location if you'd like to sign in to Skynet tonight.
This is
Bravo, number 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Alice, low power.
This Kilo 5 for Kilo Echo, Joe in Carolina. This Kilo Golf 5 Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas. Hey, I've got Ted and Patrick. You came through pretty well. Joe, I did not get your call sign or your location. Could you come now slowly with your call sign? And if you have a way of increasing power or location, that would be awesome. But you were mostly noise, so please come now with your call sign and your location.
Echolink, so maybe this will be better. Kilo, India, 5, Uniform, Kilo, Echo, KI5, UKE, Joe in Carrollton.
You are 5 by 5 on that one, so thank you so much. Joe, I appreciate that. All right, we'll do some more check-ins if we need to in a few minutes. We got 3 more of them. We're up to 21 people. All right, so Slide Master, slide number 20. Samhain, which is another way of saying summer's end, is celebrated as today's Halloween. Many historians believe that it served as the start of the new year in the Celtic calendar, or Celtic calendar, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Their New Year's Day, if you would. It was the day that the cattle were brought in from the pasture. Those who needed a winter supply of meat would be slaughtered. Since Samhain was the death night of the old year, it became associated with ghosts and graveyards. During this night of the year, it was believed that the spirits of the dead wandered from sunset until midnight. After midnight, the ghosts were said to go back to rest. Also, Halloween, which is short for All Hallows Eve, is another religious holiday as well as an astronomical holiday. In the year 1517, on October 31st, Martin Luther nailed 95 theses on the door of the Catholic Church, which explained grievances that he had with the church. But Halloween was also called the Cross-Quarter Day. Cross-Quarter days fall more or less midway between the equinoxes and the solstices. Halloween, October 31st, is autumn, September equinox, and winter solstice in December. In other words, in traditional astronomy, there are 8 major seasonal subdivisions every year, which include March and September equinoxes, the June and December solstices, and the intervening 4 cross-quarter days. Slide Master, slide number 21. In modern times, the 4 cross-quarter days are often called Groundhog's Day, May Day, Lammas, I believe how you pronounce it. That's August the 1st. And Halloween, of course. Now, translated, Lammas means loaf mass, which refers to the bread and the mass of the Holy Communion. Now, let's get back to Halloween. For us in the Northern Hemisphere, Halloween is the darkest of the cross-quarter days, coming at a time of the year when the days are growing shorter. After midnight on November 1st is called All Saints' Day. Slide Master, slide number 22. The October 31st date for Halloween has been fixed by tradition. The true cross-quarter day falls approximately around November the 7th, representing a discrepancy of about a week. According to the ancient Celtics, or Celts, a cross-quarter day marks the beginning, not the middle of the season. It's thought that one of the early forebears of Halloween, happened on that night that the Pleiades star cluster, it's also called the M45, culminated at midnight. Slide number 23. In other words, the Pleiades, this is slide number 23. In other words, the Pleiades climbed to its highest point in the sky at midnight or near the same date as the cross-quarter day. And our day, the Halloween, is fixed on October the 31st, and because of something called recession, culmination of the Pleiades now actually occurs on November the 21st. Presuming that supposedly connection between the Samhain and the midnight culmination of the Pleiades, the two events took place on or near the same date in the 11th century and the 12th century. This was several centuries before the introduction of the Gregorian calendar. That's a whole nother issue about the Gregorian calendar, and now we're on a modified Gregorian calendar, and we used to be on a Julian calendar, but yeah, okay. Sidemaster, slide number 24. That time when the Julian calendar was in use, the cross-quarter day, and the midnight culmination of the Pleiades fell, amazingly enough, on or near October 31st. But then the Julian calendar was about 1 week out of step with the seasons. Had the Gregorian calendar had been in use back then, the date of cross-quarter day would have been around November the 7th. The switch from Julian to the Gregorian calendar is entirely another topic, and there's missing days from going from one calendar to another, and we've covered that in past Skynet. Slidemaster, slide number 25. But Halloween is now fixed on October the 31st. Meanwhile, the true cross-quarter day now falls on November the 7th, and the midnight culmination of the Pleiades star cluster is on or near November the 21st. And getting closer to Thanksgiving than any other holiday. And all of this is because of precession of the Earth's axis. The 31st, the present Halloween, marks the approximate midway point between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. Halloween is one of the year's 4 cross-quarter days. Now, I've taken this information from a website called Earth and Sky, and also from the Old Farmer's Almanac. Is that awesome? Do you have your copy of the 2023 Old Farmer's Almanac? Okay. Now, Bill, I know you were eating your dinner way back, let's see now, about 8 o'clock. It was after the meeting. No. What did we have at 7 o'clock? Oh, well, whatever it was. Bill, N5BB, would like to talk about the National Space Society events and activities? Come now.
Yes, sir, Chaz. This is N5BB. Repeater, rest a moment. I happen to be the membership director and member at large of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. Regular meetings are on the second Sunday of every month, except December, when we have a party. And the November meeting will be on Sunday afternoon, November the 13th. A presentation will be a remote speaker presenting about the OSIRIS Apex mission. That's OSIRIS Apex. So what is OSIRIS Apex? Well, you may remember that back on this year, back on September 2016, a Atlas V rocket from Cape Canaveral launched a spacecraft originally called OSIRIS-REx, the mission. And this spacecraft went to the Bennu asteroid. And it circled it for a while, and then it kind of landed, and it grabbed a sample. and it is right now headed back to Earth. And in, I believe, September, right dates here, these are all scattered by years. Yes, on September of next year, of 2023, the capsule should re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and land under a parachute in the Air Force's Utah Test and Training Range, which is near Dugway Proving Grounds. It's to the west of Salt Lake City. Big, huge desert out there. In that area, you go miles and miles and miles, and there's not even a telephone pole. It's huge. And then the spacecraft is going to connect up years later in 2029 with another asteroid called Apophis, A-P-O-P-H-I-S. Actually, it's 99942 Apophis. And that asteroid is a potentially hazardous object. Originally, when Apophis might be on a path to intersect with Earth in 2029. But it turns out we now know it's definitely going to miss the Earth. So instead, the OSIRIS mission, now called OSIRIS APEX, it's OSIRIS-APEX, is going to tag along to Apophis, circle around it, for a while, be in orbit, and then it's going to butt into it and try to ram into it and see if it can stir up some material after studying it. So the OSIRIS spacecraft is getting dual use on 2 different asteroids. It's really, really cool. And if it all works well, there'll also be next year this sample return, which is a large sample. I think it's about a kilogram. Let's see. Yeah, it's probably at least a kilogram, they believe, material. Anyway, so that's what's going on, and we're going to have a talk about that on November the 13th. If you would like to view this in person, actually the speaker will be remote. So if you'd like to view this on WebEx, you can do that by sending me an email well before November the 13th. Like a week before would be ideal. And send it to n5bb@arrl.net or space@byron.net. That's space@byrom.net. Visitor privileges to view this presentation. Our last presentation, October the 9th, was concerning the B612 Foundation. This is near-Earth asteroid detection, related topic. And the previous one, on September the 11th of this year, was about Sophia, the airborne 747, modified 747 aircraft that was modified in Waco that had a telescope in it. And we got a report by a teacher that was able to be on that, on one of its missions. And it was a very, very neat presentation. So again, November 13th meeting coming up. The big event next year is going to be the International Space Development Conference, ISDC 2023. This is going to be at a hotel in Frisco, the Embassy Suites by Hilton in Frisco. It will be May 25th to 28th of 2023. And there'll be all kinds of cool people there. We're hoping to get John from Exos Aerospace out east of Dallas near Greenville. He is going to try to have some interaction with us there at the conference. There's going to be many other people there, including past astronauts and various scientists and NASA people and just who's who involving space development, involving the spacecraft going to the moon, space station, things going to Mars, you name it. Space hotels around the Earth. So, lots of exciting things happening at ISDC 2023 in end of May of next year. That's all I got, Chaz. Inside be clear.
Bill? All right, let me see. We only have a few more things left on Skynet. I've already talked about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting on November the 18th at 7:30 p.m., so I'm not going to mention anything more about that. TexasAstro.org will give you details and information about that. Okay, believe it or not, since we've done everything in reverse, we have general announcements. Now, Bill's already talked about the National Space Society. Do we have anyone out there that would like to give us any announcements for this evening's net? Come now. It could be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to license ham. Come now with your call sign.
BB.
Long time no hear, Bill. Go ahead.
To remind everybody that the Dallas Amateur Radio Club board meeting and general meeting will be this coming Tuesday evening. Board meeting is at 6 p.m. The general club meeting is at 7 p.m. at our normal hospital there in on 6. I'll run off of 635 I-35, and I read the news. I'd forgotten the topic. I read it and then I've forgotten it. Maybe somebody else can remember, or I'll look it up. Inside BB.
Maybe someone else can help us out with that. Since we were talking about general announcements, JJ pointed out that we do have somebody by the last name of General on here. Maybe he can tell us what the club meeting will be, the topic will be for this coming Tuesday. Tom, would you like to tell us?
Yeah, Chaz, I think I can do that. Kai, K1GBD, who shares experience designing and building automatic satellite tracking antenna with us. It promises to be an outstanding presentation full of thrills, chills, and thrills. Anyone needs any. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll nod in solidarity as he chronicles his trials and tribulations forging these new skills. They're meeting at the Dallas Medical Center. Don't forget, masks will be required at all times. Also, don't forget, let me back up one here because I'm on the website. You can go to w5fc.org and get additional information. You can still sign up for the 2022 YMCA Turkey Trot. Just go to w5fc.org and you can join in the fun. The good news is this is on Thanksgiving Day. It is the YMCA Turkey Trot Run. You will be done by noontime and have plenty of time to spend with loved ones or friends and Thanksgiving dinner. Site w5c.org for additional information. Back to you, Bill. Bill, let me see. Back to you, Chaz, KE5ICF.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Bill. Okay, let me do a couple of other quick announcements. We're getting close to the end of Skynet. The the Radio Amateur Satellite Group, AMSAT, has 2 nets available in the Dallas residence on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed, and you need to be registered Echolink. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, Live Link is available on on their website, amsatnet.com. This net originates from Houston, Texas. By the way, I believe Houston just won the last game of the World Series. I mean, the one that we just had tonight. So the series is tied up 1 apiece. The next, let's see now, Dallas AMSAT Net East is every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88, with a private line tone of 110.9. By Tom, he is our net control, N5HYP. He's the net control. And all are welcome to check in. Now, this coming Tuesday, it won't happen because it's the DIRC club night, so no AMSAT East then. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14, private line tone 110.9, positive offset. Let me see now. Oh, we have all sorts of nets on Monday nights. It's Ham Fixins, Ecom, and GeekNet, and then if there's this coming Monday. It's a surprise net. Can't talk about that one. Don't forget, on Fridays, we have Cert City Simulation. I believe it's at 8 p.m. And let's see now, what else do we have? Of course, TechNet, that was earlier today at 7 to 8 p.m. And of course, tonight, there is something called an Afterglow, which is going to start in just a few minutes. Tom, would you like to give us an overview of what Afterglow is going to be about, the movie thereof? Go ahead.
Yes, Chaz, and the most quotable line from the movie, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." Ben and Barbara were stuck in the farmhouse. There wasn't any way out. The previous owners were half-eaten. No one knew why. The Amway boxes were everywhere. Detergent, air fresheners, and soap. Lots and lots of soap. Doorbell rang. Ben looked through the boarded-up windows and could see a rumpled Amway representative with his sample bag muttering to himself. "These products are all 100% natural, and you can only buy them from me." While Ben was contemplating the relative merits of Amway, another salesperson, a woman, was at the back door knocking and saying, "These quality skincare products will make your skin look natural and vibrant." She had several layers of the stuff on her face. She somehow looked like a zombie, but that couldn't be. Barbara opened the door and let the woman in. What happened next was unbelievable. Join us for the Afterglow movie in a few minutes. Night of the Living Dead from 1968. There was a color and black and white version of the film. It is the same film. I don't know why. All I know is the Le Mans was red, but I didn't know that until after. Chaz, KEPCX.
Thank you so much, Tom. I'm going to see if there's any last-minute check-ins for Skynet. If you want to get credit, you've got to come now with your call sign phonetically and your name and your location. This will be our final call for check-ins into Skynet.
W5FC.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, cruise in Arlington.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John with a question.
Bravo 3, Romeo Whiskey Tango, Jerry in Irvin.
Functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net.
Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima.
Someone from Arlington, I didn't catch your name, and could you repeat your call sign once again?
That was Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, and on cruise.
Cruise, thank you very much. I've got Ted, and then Jerry, you were covered up by the repeater ID. Jerry, can you come now with your call sign once again?
Sure, Mr. Kilo Bravo 3, Romeo Whiskey Tango, Jerry in Irvin. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you, Sure, we've got you checked in. Okay, we have now 24 hams that have participated in Skynet. We want to thank all the check-ins for this evening. I hope you will join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is just the beginning and never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all other DARC nets. And at this, hey, if I can do this, anybody can do this. Contact any of the net controls or by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics, discussions about this net and astronomy in general on our Facebook or Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other internet resources by going to w5fc.org. The conclusion of this net that's going to happen in seconds. So until next Saturday night, Chaz, KF5JHA, and I'll be closing the net at 10:31:14 p.m. local time, and you're turning the repeater back to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. Tom, it's up to you. What time are we coming back for Afterglow? KF5JHA.
Oh, Chaz, KF5JHA. We'll be back in 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes. So go powder your noses, do whatever you need to do. Bring back ice cream and have some for me. 5 minutes. KE5 ICX.
N5BB, Kilo 5, Julia, Delta Whiskey.
Radio check. I just put an antenna up and I wanted to see if it works. Kilo India 5, Uniform Kilo Echo.
Uniform Kilo Echo. We can hear you fine. Audio's a little light, but your signal is strong.
Alrighty, thank you. Yeah, I'm not. It's very interesting. I just got 2 tripods, taped them together, and on the top of my chimney, I've got a metal cover, and so I slowly put it up on the tripod and slowly raised it up to the top of the chimney, so it's using the metal part as the ground plane. So, hey, thank you for getting back to me. I appreciate it. Kilo India 5, Uniform Kilo Echo.
Good. Sounds good, and you sound good. This is KE5 ICX. We'll be back with Afterglow in about 3.5 minutes.
N5BB, Kilo 5, Julia, Delta Whiskey.
Annette, getting ready to start. John, how can I help you? N5BB.
Thanks, dude. Had a question about the ISD conference. Even if you have a membership, it's pretty pricey. Is there anybody out there with discount or free tickets or something, or they're well, what's the word? I can't think of the phrase when they oh shoot. There's a phrase for vendors out there that actually work with it. I was wondering if there's anybody like that.
We're doubling with each other. Give me your question real quickly before the other net starts.
Yeah, I was asking a question about the ISD conference. Even if you have a membership, it's pretty pricey. Are there any vendors out there or sponsors that have discount or free pricing?
No, it's a big conference, and for the meeting place. Sorry about that. If you're a member of the National Space Society, it's cheaper. I gotta go now. The net's getting ready to start. N5BB.
USL, Bill. K5, JDW, clear for net.
Okay, it's time to get started. This is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray. Yes, me again. And I'll be your net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. What is the Afterglow Movie Net? Well, it is a net about movies after all the other nets are over. This is the last one on this repeater. People who participate are assigned a movie 1 week ahead of time, and they have 1 week to watch the said movie. Tonight's movie is called Night of the Living Dead from 1968. It's an American independent horror film directed and photographed and edited by Robert A. Romero, with a screenplay by John Russo, Romero, and starring Dwayne Jones and Judith O'Dea. This story follows 7 people who are trapped in a rural farmhouse in western Pennsylvania, which is under assault by an enlarging group of flesh-eating undead ghouls. Well, I will give you the synopsis or the bit and tell you the rules of this net. What we will be doing is we will go through a check-in round where I find out if you had seen the movie and your call sign and name and maybe where you're transmitting from. Next, we will then go through and discuss the plot for the film and what you thought about it if you did see the film. Then we talk about characterization and what you thought about the characters and acting. This should be a good one for that. And then finally, a third round, which includes everything else, which includes music, special effects, photography, anything you want to talk about, including something you may have missed on the first couple of rounds, and any final check-ins there are. You do not have to necessarily have seen the film. You can just let us know that you're there and have checked in and are just listening. Or if you'd like to participate, your net control, that would be me, will ask you what you think of the film, even if you haven't seen it. Would you be willing to see it? Does it remind you of another film you may have seen in the past? Is this something you would avoid at all costs, like being turned into a zombie? These are questions that the net control and everyone else participating would like to know the answers to. So let me begin with the plot description. This is KE5ICX. Barbara and Johnny drive to a cemetery in rural Pennsylvania to visit their father's grave. The car radio goes off in the air due to technical difficulties. As they're leaving, a strange ashen-faced, stumbling man wearing a tattered suit kills Johnny and attacks Barbara. She flees and takes shelter in a woman who they're dead and half-eaten. She sees a multiplying number of strange ghouls led by a man from the cemetery approaching the house. A man named Ben arrives, secures the farmhouse by boarding the windows and doors, and drives away the ghouls with a lever-action rifle he finds in a closet with fire, which the ghouls fear. Barbara, in a catatonic state from shock, is surprised when Henry, Cooper, and Tom emerge from the cellar. Harry has been taking shelter there with his wife Helen and their young daughter Karen, after a group of the same monsters overturned their car and bit Karen on the arm, leaving her seriously ill. Tom arrived with a girlfriend, Judy, after hearing an emergency broadcast about the series of brutal killings. Tom aids Ben in securing the farmhouse while Harry angrily protests that it is unsafe before returning to the cellar where he believes is safer. Ghouls continue to besiege the farmhouse in ever-increasing numbers. Refugees listen to radio and television reports of a wave of mass murder being committed across the east coast of the United States by an army of cannibalistic, reanimating corpses and posses of armed men patrolling the countryside to kill the ghouls. They confirm that the ghouls can be stopped with a bullet or heavy blow to the head or by being burned. As Ben discovered, that the various rescue centers are offering refuge and safety. Scientists theorize that the reanimations are occurring due to radiation from a space probe that exploded in Earth's atmosphere on its way back from Venus. devises a plan to obtain medical supplies for Karen and transport the group to a rescue center by refueling his truck. Ben, Tom, and Judy drive to a nearby gas pumps and Molotov cocktails. However, the gas from the pump spills and causes the truck to catch fire and explode, killing Tom and Judy. Ben runs back to the house on his own and breaks down the door where Harry does not let him back in and beats Harry for his cowardice. While the ghouls feast on the remains of Tom and Judy, the remaining survivors attempt to find a way out. However, the ghouls break through the barricades. In the ensuing chaos, Harry is shot dead by Ben. Karen dies from her injuries, reanimates, and begins to eat her father's remains, and stabs Helen to death with a masonry trowel. Barbara recovers from her catatonic state and tries to help Ben keep the ghouls out, but is dragged away by a reanimated Johnny, her boyfriend, and other ghouls. As the horde breaks into the house, Ben takes refuge in the cellar, where he shoots Harry and Helen's reanimating corpses. The next morning, an armed posse arrives and begins dispatching the remaining ghouls in the area. Awoken by their gunfire and sirens, Ben emerges from the cellar, but is shot and killed when they mistake him for a ghoul. His body is thrown onto a bonfire and burned with the rest of the ghouls. The end. I will now take check-ins from anybody who would like to join us this evening. I will need your call sign, phonetically hopefully, your name, and did you see Night of the Living Dead from 1968? I will take check-ins now. By the way, you do not have to have seen the movie to participate, so please come now.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving. Yes, I saw this movie.
Bravo, the Whiskey, J. near Weber. Yes, I saw the film.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas. Aaron and I have seen this movie, although I guess it's been a while.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia, in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see the movie.
Hey, let me go ahead and get those check-ins. I got N5BB, Bill and Irving. Yep, he saw the movie. KG5BZW, Jay near Weatherford. Yep, he saw the movie. NT5TM, Tony and Aaron in Dallas. Yep, they saw the movie. NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, she saw the movie. Additional check-ins, please come now.
November Golf 5 Yankee, Allen in North Garland. Yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf, cruise in Arlington, and yes, I saw the film.
All right, we picked up two more. NG5Y, Alan in North Garland. Yes, he saw the movie. Welcome back, Alan. KI5KW also saw the movie. Anyone else like to join us before we get started? Please come with your call, your name, and did your location be nice too? And did you see Night of the Living Dead from 1968? Okay, I am confident there will be others who will reanimate and show up later on in this net. I just feel it. So let us get started. The first round is all about the plot. What did you think about it? Was it good? Was it bad? Could it have been better? Was there something wrong with it? Was there something right with it? could you have been spending a better use of an hour and a half of your time? These are all important things that you can answer. So I'm just going to go in order of the folks who checked in. So we'll start with Bill, N5BB. Bill, your thoughts about the plot to tonight's movie, Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, very good, Tom. Well, there's something you may not realize. There's news about this film franchise. This is N5BB, by the way. There's news, big news about this film franchise that just came out on Wednesday of this week. That's right. George Romero died a number of years ago, but his widow and production company and other things are looking at making another movie in this series. It's another movie in the Night of the Living Dead franchise. So right from some of the original people and family and everything. Interesting. So we'll have to be on the lookout. Right now, they've just announced that they're working on it, but they have a director and somebody is writing a script, et cetera, et cetera. So that sounds interesting, doesn't it? Now, I thought I'd seen this movie, but no, I'd seen some later versions of it, not the original. I'd never seen the original. My first comment about the plot, it's a lot stronger than I ever anticipated, and stronger in several senses. Some of the writing and acting and photography was in-your-face direct. It was kind of like a newsreel, as some people said. It was just black and white and straightforward, and can't ignore it. It just was realistic and rough, which made it a really great horror movie. I thought it was very interesting, the plot-wise, how the movie was organized in that the initial main characters, Barbara and Johnny, her brother, all of that, Barbara was, after that event, Barbara was so traumatized that she didn't talk for a long time. She just didn't say hardly anything. And so it was and there's various other places later in the movie where there was no dialogue for a while, just quiet. Great. There wasn't all just babbling stuff. There's people, sitting there in shock or not knowing what to say or things. And I really thought that was good writing, for that. The techniques that were used there. I thought the movie was just about the right length. It moved along. You really wanted to see what was going to happen. You really had no idea what was going to happen in the last scenes. It was, you're rooting for the hero, but who knew? You're rooting for everybody else, but who knew? And you didn't know until the last scene, which was, of course, horrible. It's a horror film. Other things about the plot. Everybody smoked. I mean, it was 1968. Radiation was the danger. Space probe from Venus that came back and exploded. No, back in 1968, and in general, not a really horrible scientific idea. I mean, it's an unknown cause for things. I mean, this is back when all kinds of other interesting things are being discovered, like familidide causing, babies born with big problems, birth defects, and all kinds of other things about radiation, etc. So the fact that radiation from space was causing this that just kind of fit in with everybody was scared about nuclear bombs and radiation and everything. I thought some other really neat in the way it was done was the radio reports in the TV. Made it seem like the original War of the Worlds thing. It made it seem so much more realistic. And I thought one of the neat things about it was the actors talked over the radio. They just talked over it. So some parts of it you actually missed because they talked over what they were saying, which made it appear completely unscripted. And if you read about the movie, a lot of the dialogue was unscripted. He more or less told them, talk about this, and they just made up the exact dialogue, and it comes over as very real. I liked the big arguments about the cellar versus upstairs in the house. This is in 5BB. I liked the details, like one of the zombies was eating insects, I think crickets, off of a tree. You heard in much of the movie the sound of the crickets loudly through the movie. This is great. This great audio. I mean, a lot of that was just really well thought out and just surprised me, actually. I didn't expect it was going to be that good. What else do I have? There's some other comments here, but I think that's good enough for now. I guess one quote I had was Helen. This is Harry Cooper, the guy that's always scared of everything. His wife telling him, Harry, isn't that correct? So he always had to be right, Harry, her husband, and she was fed up with it. That's all. And of course, the plot thing of the child eating her father, that was really gruesome. Really good horror movie. N5BB. That's all I got for now.
Thank you, Bill, and good comments. Next is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay near Weatherford, your thoughts on the plot for Night of the Living Dead from 1968. Go right ahead from KE5ICX.
This is KG5BZW. Okay, yeah, this is the second time I've watched the film, and I have to admit, well, being prepared for some of the horrors at the end probably made it a little bit easier watching the second time. Although it had been a little while, it's probably been, may have been, I don't know, maybe not, but it's been a while. There's a lot to compliment about the film. Bill is taking a lot of the Punch-Out mouth, or I don't know what he is trying to say here, but I'm not entirely sure what else to say. In fact, I was kind of surprised about how the impromptu acting on some of the parts. It makes sense. It's plots real tight, and I mean there are a few parts that, of course, don't really make sense. I thought that some of the radio speeches or whatever, it took me a little bit. I was taking a little bit out of it because I'm not sure what it was. Something didn't quite jive to me. Just because I thought actors somebody in real life wouldn't quite word it that way or do something. And there are a few parts also with, this is a movie I should have written more notes on than I did. I'm actually talking off the top of my head on most of this stuff. Let's see. The whole, this isn't quite plot related, but how we're introduced to these, I guess we now call them zombies, but we're just introduced to these people. They're clearly, people of sorts, but not people. It's just things. I love that. It's like, we now know that these are, we don't know what to call them. There's just some simple choices like that. Let me see. Let me reset. I actually want to part of the film again, just because I thought she was kind of in shock in this catatonic state. But when she got seen down, that her memory did not seem quite as perfect. And also, a side point, I believe that while some reason that Johnny was her boyfriend, no, Johnny's brother, whatever. I'm like 90% certain of that, but, there's just, yeah, the wood, I'm kind of, it's like, I'm wondering about how they got all of that wood. Yeah, of course you got dressers and stuff you can break apart, but, I thought that was just like, okay, that's, sticks that are just ready and didn't really seem to belong to anything, so that was like, I feel like it's nitpicking when I'm picking on stuff like that, though. The dialogue, but yeah, just apart from the radio stuff, the interactions between the actors, I just love that. The impromptu aspect that Bill said, I was like, oh yeah, now it kind of makes sense. Now, they were, it was even, it's method acting, I guess. Yeah, I guess that is the term, but it really worked pretty well. And then of course you got the heartbreak at the end with the guy that actually, he had a chance to save him from just being mistaken for a zombie just because, I don't know. It's like, we're just eliminating everybody in this area, whatever, and yeah, there's a certain, there's a certain aspect to that which makes that awfully haunting, even in 2022. But yeah, that was kind of crazy. I'm not sure what else to say. I'm sure a lot of other people have more interesting things to say, so I'm going to cut it at that. Get your 5 PCW back tonight.
All right, thank you, Jay. This is KE5ICX. Next is Tony and Aaron. NT5TM. Tony, what did you think of Night of the Living Dead from 1968?
Well, but thinking back on this, it made me think of Hamlet. Go and bid the soldiers shoot. In the theater, as was discussed in the commentary to Little Shop of Horrors, you can get away with killing off all the viewpoint characters. The audience says, what an interesting play. Everyone died. It's hard to get away with that in a movie. They tried that in Little Shop of Horrors and had to scrap it after finishing all the effects because that just made it too tedious and depressing and not at all funny, and they didn't realize they had kind of a funny movie on their hands. This is not a funny movie. It lacks a single up and appear as a word. So really, they could get away with an absolutely theatrical plot in which actually the entire principal cast just dies one after another. It's really unusual. It's not at all Hollywood, which explains, why this is a low-budget independent film. But it is actually something audiences are pretty used to in the theater world. So it's kind of impressive and unique that it's become a classic movie despite doing that plot thing where Americans just don't expect it. So I don't remember a whole lot of details, but I do remember being struck by that. And when Erin wanders back by, we'll bring any comments she has to next round, NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, what did you think of Night of the Living Dead from 1968?
ICX MNS. This is NV5F, Virginia. I will start by saying I don't like horror movies. It is one of my least favorite genres. I watched it during the afternoon when it was still light outside. I knew it was kind of a cult classic from the same year that gave us 2001: A Space Odyssey, and so I like to watch movies from 1968 just to make that kind of comparison of what the state of the art was and what other things were coming out at the same time. So I thought that made this interesting for me. Also that it is black and white, which I think in the tradition of Alfred Hitchcock makes it a lot more suspenseful than the colored version. I'm guessing that was done probably in the 80s when they were colorizing movies. I did see a little bit of that one afterwards, but the black and white definitely gives it the suspense and that high contrast. Anyway, when I started watching it, I thought, well, I know this is kind of a cult classic. Zombies are really in style. They've been in style for about the last decade or more now. And this is one of the movies that started it all. They, like y'all were saying, they didn't call them zombies in the movie. They were called ghouls or reanimated corpses or whatever, but definitely began a major trope in horror filmmaking. I agree with Bill. I started watching this thinking, oh, this is going to be a crappy B horror movie that's a cult classic just because it's kind of the genesis of the zombie thing, and it's stupid and it's easy to make fun of, and that's kind of how it felt when it was starting. When Barbara runs away and she can't seem to get in the car and just drive away and just get away, she has to look back and then run into the tree, and she can't seem to run without falling down, and and then she gets in this house, and things got much more interesting from there. And I was interested in the story. The pacing was good. It had a good, slow, suspenseful build where the guy got there and he started boarding things up, and I kept thinking, man, why aren't the zombies just breaking the door down? But they just kind of gathered around and stirred numbers, and they found the people in the cellar, and the suspense built, and the way they did the media in kind of in the background on the radio and the TV, and the repetitive nature of their announcements, which is common today when there's a big crisis going on. They sit there and say the same things over and over again because they're live. And I now that Bill shared his research about how they just gave them a situation and let them extemporize their dialogue, actually did make the dialogue kind of realistic. They were, when Mr. Cooper came up from the the cellar, and they were arguing about whether or not to hole up in the cellar or whether to make their stand up in the upper part of the house. And it sounded like these two people kind of having this real sort of irrational, almost irrational, super repetitive conversation. And I was like, man, this is tedious, but that's kind of how it would be in real life. And the effects were pretty gruesome. I had to look away in a lot of cases. There were some things that were pretty predictable, like that the little girl would become a zombie, and then the fact that she killed her parents was pretty horrible, and the fact that for a while that they were going to make it. You know, they came up with their plan, and they got outside, and they had the fire, and they scared the zombies off, and got to the gas pump, and you know, the guy laid the torch down in just the wrong place, and the other guy was, you know, too nervous to get the gas in the truck, and the truck blew up, and there was this huge reversal, and I was rooting for them, and I was frustrated. It was a very classic horror thing, and up until the end. I agree with Bill about the parts with no dialogue, or I'll some of it for the next round about acting and characters, but I thought that for what it was full, it was well-paced, it was interesting, it was gruesome and horrible, but not just gratuitously graphic, except for maybe in a couple spots, but I'm just not a horror person. There were moments when I wanted to turn it off, because I don't like horror movies, but this is a classic, and it's a good one for this weekend, and now I kind of get, you know, kind of just even the parts about how they were killing the zombies and how they kind of defeated them at the end. And I loved the tie-in to NASA. This was the beginning of the height of the Apollo program. And you've got the same year, you've got 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it's this very realistic space voyage picture. And then you've got this thing that's kind of calling back to the 50s and the fear of radiation and what it does to, you know, makes giant bugs or giant lizards or corpses that come back to life. And so it had a little bit of that old feel to it, the old sci-fi feel. But they, you know, they even mentioned NASA by name, and they mentioned this probe and Venus and radiation. And I was very surprised by it. I don't want to repeat too much of what other people have said, but I was much more impressed than I thought I was going to be, and I was very sad at the end, and I kind of saw that coming once he was the only one left, and he's kind of making his way upstairs, and you're kind of hoping that he'll say, "Don't shoot," or something, and they just shoot him, and, you know, it sucks. But anyway, pretty good movie. I was surprised. KU5ICX in the net, NV5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. I'm glad you found it impressive. You're not alone. Next is NG5Y Allen. Welcome back. What did you think of Night of the Living Dead from 1968? This is KE5ICX.
Well, I thought I had seen all the zombie movies before, but this is one that I had not seen. I thought the pacing of the movie was good, and for the vintage of the movie, I thought it was pretty interesting. To me, the most interesting thing was the differences in the zombies. They were quite a bit faster than most of the zombies in the other movies, and they were pretty easy to get rid of, and the zombies were adept at using tools, which in other zombie movies they were pretty dumb and would just shuffle around. If they couldn't catch you, you were pretty safe from them, especially inside of a car with the windows rolled up. You wouldn't have anything to worry about. That's all I've got to say. Back to net, NG51.
Thank you, Ellen. Next is Cruz, KI5KWG, over in Arlington. Cruz, what'd you think of the plot?
KI5KWG. I'll begin with that I don't like zombie movies. Reason never appealed to me. However, I really like this film. Really, really do like this film. Kind of as an aside before I read off my main plot point, I thought there was a great INCOMS radio emergency communications argument being made a couple of times during this film. Is just having a receiver can be vital. And I thought that was kind of interesting for this group. But what I have is, in most of all, I love a tragedy. I'm not a nihilist, or a nihilist if you prefer, but tragedy is real, and tragic stories are very important. So I was thinking of, while watching the end of it, a friend gave me a book, The Art of Racing in the Rain, and I remember I was really enjoying the book and knew it was going to end tragically. About 4 chapters before the ending, I went, what's happening here? And it was, what's that, I can't think of the literary comment name, when the cavalry comes over the hill. Oh, Ex Machina. Just unexpected, salvation at the end that had nothing to do with what had gone before. And I hated the book because I knew the author had given in to an editor, and they chose not to do that. They had the same problem I read, wanting this to turn this to a Hollywood ending, they said, and refused and said, no, this is what the story is. Let me do a reset. The other great praise I have for it, I think, is in not changing the script after casting Dwayne Jones as Ben. I thought that was great. They decided not to make race part of this film and just let the everyday man be the hero without regard to the color of his skin. And in 1968, that was kind of a gutsy call, I think, and I liked it. I liked the results. And lastly, on plot, I have a plot hole for y'all, and maybe it's not a hole, and y'all can fill it in for me. Why did the zombies not eat each other? This is KI5, KWG. Really enjoyed this film. Liked what everybody said. Back to Net.
All right, thank you, Cruz, and I wondered the same thing, so I'm glad you asked the question first. Let's see, before I give my comments, I'm going to ask if there's additional check-ins. Tonight's movie we're talking about on the Afterglow movie is Night of the Living Dead from 1968, which so far everybody's given a thumbs up. If you'd like to join us, please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see the film?
This is KB9, SOK. Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I did see the film.
Very good. Sean is here now, KB9SOK. I always give that towards the end because I know you're coming off of late net, I believe. So we are talking first round about plot. What did you think of it from KE5ICN?
This is KB9SOK. Well, it was interesting. Obviously, this is the beginning of that, before there were zombies. I'd seen gotten a lot of it. I didn't see it originally when it came to the theaters, but I did see it on in the 80s on one of those Saturday nights when they had the double features, and so I do remember seeing parts of it then. So it's kind of interesting going back and seeing it again. And as many have commented, I really enjoyed. I think the realism of it. Felt like it was a real situation. Especially with the radio part, it did have that throwback to the radio shows and stuff, listening to the radio, and even the TV still had that same announcer kind of feel to it, and I really thought that was clever. Because that's exactly what people do in these kind of situations, is they go listen to the radio or TV to see what's going on in that disaster. A lot of times in modern movies, they don't do that. People just run around and scream. And I do like this film because there wasn't a lot of the gore. Starting in the late '90s and into the 2000s, everything, all the horror movies just had to be all about the gore. There wasn't no real story. It's just about how can we chop these people up or blow them up, and I really don't enjoy that. I enjoy the old classics where there was actually suspense and you really didn't know what was going to happen next. And I think that makes a true horror film, just not the blood and gore. And unfortunately, they got away from that, and actually the box office suffered very much so. In that time frame, they were at an all-time low for money, and they almost come to the point of stop making horror films there for a bit, just because people stopped going. And then when they finally started bringing back ones with plots again, it brings people back. So I think it kind of shows that, unlike the zombies, as living, do actually like substance. We like films with actual storyline. So yeah, I really enjoyed kind of the pace of it, the realism of it. I didn't know about the impromptu parts. That's kind of interesting. And that definitely makes a lot of sense. And as in any situation, people do have a tendency to fight over who's in charge. So I'm not surprised by that part of it. Yeah, there were parts of it that were predictable, but if you kind of think about it, if you looked at it how you would have watched it back in 1968, it might have been surprising in some places because, obviously we've seen these tropes so many times now. So, yeah, for the most part, I did like it. I do feel that there was, a couple little parts that I thought was a little odd and out of place. Our hero there, as he tried to help the girl and snap her out of it, seemed very sympathetic, and then the moment she opens up, then he starts yelling at her and kind of changes his demeanor. It's like, well, wait a minute. That didn't seem very nice. So that was a little off-putting. That was probably really the only part I was a little disappointed with. But overall, yeah, there's a few parts I felt that was a little bit drawn out, especially the part there where he kept in the very beginning when he was trying to get her to talk because he was getting ready. But all in all, I really kind of liked that old school feel to it and just how it was paced. And even the silence parts made a lot of sense. Just felt more like a real disaster and people trying to really figure out what do we do, and just overall pretty good. A lot more to talk about when we get to characters. Yeah, back to net. This is KB9, that's okay.
Hey, thank you, Sean. Thanks for those comments from all. I am not a zombie film nut or even a horror film aficionado. I rarely watch them. I do enjoy the Universal Picture stuff, which is a little different from the 40s. But I have to admit, I found this film intriguing. It worked me personally is that it did involve characters, maybe a little cartoonish, but not necessarily. If you're in a terrible situation, how would you act and react? And you don't always know. You don't even always know how you're going to respond to a situation that you cannot extricate yourself from. So I thought that was very interesting. I did some research on the film, of course, and I found out that the film's inspiration actually came from Last Man on Earth, or Richard Matheson's story, I Am Legend. Of course, it was lifted. There was no one called a zombie, but there were no zombies in his film either, all three versions of that film. And I thought so that they took it to the next level, or to a newer level, involving how many and how it got there. And I thought that was very, very interesting. I love the fact that our main character just decided that he went into survival mode and he's going to figure it out. And he finds others and he says, come on, follow me. Let's protect ourselves. And not everybody's agreeing because not everybody agrees on what to do. That sounds like my office at work. So, and I've got zombies around there wandering the halls, so I know the feeling. I thought that our main character, although we'll get into that, was No, I'm going to skip that for now because I'm going to let others talk about that because I thought the characterizations were quite good. But your main character actually pulled it together, I think, in a lot of ways. I love the idea that, yes, and I think Virginia mentioned this too, that there's kind of a realism to all of this. We've got an asset called by name, which she mentioned, in the streets of Washington, and there's a limo, and we've got the higher-ups from the Pentagon there talking and trying to make sense of what's going on, and the NASA people and all of that. And it's done in a very natural way. The interviews that they did were quite interesting too, very authentic, and there's sort of a Robert Altman vibe there, where he allowed improvisation in his films, such as MASH. I saw that here, and I think that adds a level of, as long as the actors could pull it off, adds a level of authenticity to it, which I think is great. The civil defense part was interesting as well. The stuff that's just, boiling off from the radio and television is done just the way you would expect it to be done then, and even to a certain extent now. As the stories start to unfold, you get a little bit more information. We find out that there's a way to defeat the things, and then they start doing it, and people discover it along the way. Sometimes, too, just a narrative can be helpful, like what happened at the diner and how an explosion and all of that. We didn't see any of that, but we heard the story, and we imagined it, and now it's a part of the movie, even though it's in our imagination. I thought that was a great move, very economical. Another thing, yes, the film was filmed on a minuscule budget, but real locations can really make a difference. And I thought that made the film quite interesting and rather authentic. Along with that, and this kind of goes into our third round, but I'll mention it now. When you're on scene locations, as we've seen in films that have a low budget, if the sound or the cinematography does sticky cam and that looks like the microphone is in the parking lot across the street, really distracts from the film. We had none of that. It worked really well, and it was consistent throughout the film. I was amazed. I thought that this was a very quality film for the amount of time and effort that went into it. And I thought that the dialogue was realistic and was carried by the actors quite well. And overall, I thought it worked. If you keep it and thinking about the film, hours or days after you've watched it, I watched it last night and I was thinking about it today, that tells me that it's a good film. It offers out some really good ideas and thought-provoking ideas that really leaves the audience wanting for more. I just felt that in the whole thing. There was some slow pacing in it at points. It was really slow getting started. It started fast with the zombie, but then when they got in the house, it took a while for things to happen. And everybody ends up showing up at the house, and the story continues to grow. All right, I've blasted that one. As I said, I think this is a well-done script. Let's go back to the top. The movie that let me ask if there's any additional check-ins before I move on. Anyone else like to join us this evening? Tonight's movie is Night of the Living Dead from 1968. Okay, well, let's go to the top. Second round is characterization and acting. So we'll start with Bill, N5BB. Bill, what did you think about that from KE5I6?
Thank you, N5BB. One comment earlier, somebody said something about why didn't the zombies, the ghouls, why didn't they eat themselves? Well, I think the premise was the radiation changed recently dead bodies and turned them into these ghouls. And so the ghouls trying to eat for whatever reason, I mean, the details of this you don't want to try to explain. I mean, they're reanimated corpses. I mean, how can you explain that? But evidently, they were trying to eat either live people or people who had recently died. So you notice they were trying to eat people that had just been killed. They were fresh. But once they had turned into the ghouls or zombies or whatever, they didn't try to do them. So I think they had to do something with whatever change the radiation was causing in the bodies. Or they had modified, they transformed into the zombies. Then they were interesting and edible to the zombies. Anyway, what's interesting is the zombies were able to take off people's hands or things. In other areas, they didn't appear all that strong, but they were able to find ways of taking people's body parts out and everything. They were pretty good at tearing people apart. Anyway, another thing about the acting and characterization and things, I really did like the TV and especially the radio part of this. When they were playing, as earlier, they talked over it, which I thought was very realistic, and right on top of it. So you couldn't hear some of the radio for a moment because they talked right on top of it, which I think was great. And also, when they walked outside, you couldn't hear the radio anymore. When they walked inside, there it was again. I noticed that the cameras, the point of view of the camera, when it went outside, the radio went away. When they went inside, it went back. It was all done well. I mean, it was kind of simple. It was kind of on and off, but still, it was done well, and it seemed very realistic to me. Found the TV, which to us looked like an ancient black and white TV, but that was modern technology then. And they got that to work. You notice initially they had to mess with the rabbit ears before they picked up the TV thing correctly, which I thought was great. That was great. I mean, the TV didn't work initially. They had to mess around with it. I mean, there's attention to detail in this movie that was a lot more than a lot of the B flicks from the 50s, where they didn't have any of that kind of detail. Also, when it comes to the radio reporting, I think back to an event that occurred 2 years previously, in 1966, 2 years before this movie came out, in Austin, Texas, where I was living and just graduated from the 6th grade. Charles Whitman went up to the top of the University of Texas Tower and shot a bunch of people up before he was killed. And there was a documentary on this, I don't know if any of you have heard it or seen it, that was shown on KERA TV here locally a year or two ago. And it was is it rotoscope? It was this, this kind of, cartoonish a little bit, but it was Neil Spence and some other TV reporters and radio, and they were talking about how they reported it. And this reminded me of this. That was the way the reporting was back then. It looked very realistic, sounded realistic. The confusion with the government officials where they kind of argued among themselves. Oh, I don't think you should characterize it that way. That was very realistic. When the sheriff came, it's the kind of the country sheriff, and he was rounding up the guys, and they were going around. That all was just, it was the clothes he was wearing. I thought that was all very realistic. By the way, I read about this. They said some of the clothes in the movie were people's own clothes. They brought in their clothes. And one of the extras or something was a butcher, worked in a butcher shop, and that's some of the entrails they brought in for part of the things their people were eating inside BB. I thought that Ben, the main protagonist, was Dwayne Jones. I thought he did a great job, and he was a academic. He actually, he was a theater director. He had done some work at the Sorbonne. He was artistic director of various things. He had a rather neat career. Unfortunately, he died of a heart attack or something, kind of young. But he still had a really interesting career. And evidently, when they were, he came over as the right kind of person to play this. So originally it wasn't designed for a black actor, but they didn't redo it, which I think is great. And he played it straight. He played it, and he insisted on not playing a kind of country yokel. It was originally written that way, but he insisted on playing it as himself, which I think was really brave and good, and it came over great. He really appeared as a very intriguing character. He was brave. He could get things done. He used other people to help him. He wasn't sure how to mess with that pickup truck. He was very brave in what he was doing, and it came over really well. And we were all just shocked at the last scene and saddened by it. Barbara, she didn't have a lot to say because she was in shock most of the movie. I'm sure that was on purpose, but she didn't get a chance to do much, and she played somebody in shock pretty well. But her range was kind of limited because she didn't have much dialogue. Donnie, her brother, who wasn't credited in the credits, but he was somebody that later was a director of one of the other movies. He, I think, was great. I think he played it kind of he wasn't scared of anything. He thought it was crazy, and he was the first one to get eaten. I think he did a great job playing that character, and I just like it. I will enjoy those few minutes watching him and her interacting and arguing about things, and I just love that. It was just like a family scene in a graveyard. It wasn't that scary necessarily, but it really came off good as a little family interaction. The other family interaction between Helen and Harry Cooper, I thought was great also. They had a little, Helen said, well, Harry, you always got to be right, and Harry had to be right, and he was bullheaded, and he was also very scared. He wasn't very brave at all. He was loudmouthed and not brave. And that was a great characterization. I think he played it very well. I think his wife didn't have a lot to do, but I think she played that character correctly. The other younger guy that drove the car away, or the truck away, and his wife that came and got in it with him, I think he did a pretty good job. Her characterization was kind of a bimbo. She was so scared that she just had to run out and get in the truck with him, even though that was probably a bad thing to do. But anyway, I like these characters. You were interested in the characters. You cared what happened to them. You were worried about them. They weren't necessarily just dumb people doing dumb things. They had a reason for what they were doing. So anyway. I like the characterization. That's all I got. Inside BB.
Thank you, Bill. And next is Jay. Thoughts on direction and the acting from KE5ICM.
This is KG5BTW. Yeah, the characters, from the point, I'm still trying to figure out what I can say that hasn't already been said. Bill said a lot. But I love the fact that you know, we're first introduced to these ghouls, these reanimated people. It's not some sort of shock or maybe I'm making this a bigger deal than it really is, but I am kind of glad that when we were first introduced that there's no shock or anything to it. It's just a, you know, maybe a centric individual that's a little bit odd, that's just hanging around the cemetery for whatever reason, but, you know, you don't have no suspicion that they'd, you know, come and murder you, but I love the way the ghouls, the reanimated individuals were introduced. And I thought was a imperfect character, if that makes any sense. Because the way he reacted, I mean, he kind of first, he seems very relatable. But at the same time, I mean, relatable in the fact that I treat him as an absolute hero that, I'm sure there's a term I've forgotten, nothing can go wrong when this individual is in town or in charge or whatever. No, he seems like a real person, and that gets, you know, irrationally annoyed at certain things, just like the rest of us. And maybe he shouldn't have been annoyed at the lady. You know, just keep telling. How often does telling somebody to keep calm keep someone calm? After all, it's not a good strategy. If somebody, I don't know what to think it was in the '60s about things like that, but typically that's almost like saying don't think about don't think about dogs. Well, what's the first thing you think about? Dogs. So, but there's things about the character like that. Like, you know, if you really thought about it, that it's like, yeah, okay, I understood the emotion of his reaction rather than, you know, it wasn't completely rational, but it was a understandable emotion. And I thought that was really cool. As previously has been said, I thought I mean, all the characters, I agree, all the characters were quite interesting, actually. Yes, even the officials. The only thing I'm trying to even remember. I thought there's just something about the radio reports that annoyed me to some extent. Early on, but maybe it really was that way. It's just, you know, the rep. No, it was. It's such a small detail. I almost hate to bring it up because I have already forgotten it. So maybe I shouldn't bring it up. But you know, the news reporters, the officials, nobody was particularly uninteresting. I can recall, of course, the ghouls. Well, I mean, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much about the ghouls. He saw, you know, he saw all types of individuals, and they didn't look like. They literally looked like they were interrupted in something, maybe a bath or whatever, and they became their ghoulish selves, and you know they're now unified in this one strange, twisted goal of eating people. And that I thought that was kind of interesting aspect. I mean, I guess it's pretty common for zombie films these days, I guess. But I don't know if that was something you'd see previously. Yeah, and some of the interactions between the characters and then how the even though they were kind of predictably, it's like you had a feeling something stupid was going to happen at some point. Maybe because these characters aren't. Maybe it really is because of the characterization. Because it's like, you know, they're smart enough individuals, but they aren't going to necessarily think everything through, and that seems to have shown in the way certain things happen. A lot of things happen, honestly. I thought there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't really think of it. Anything else? So I'm going to head to the next person. KG5BGW.
All right, thank you, Jay. Next up, Tony and Era and NT5TM. Tony, your comments on characterization and the acting from KE5ICM.
I don't think I have too much to add, although Aaron did have a couple of comments. We've started rewatching the movie now because this has not diminished our interest in it at all. Just how amazingly competent the character of Ben is. He's getting right to things and trying to focus on priorities. And also, this movie reminds her of Das Boot. You get so invested in all the characters, and then things keep getting worse, and they get very abruptly worse at the end. So, was a good point that isn't the only movie that has an extra pile on of tragedy. Get back to net.
All right, thank you, Tony. Well, that was a quick one, but that's fine. Next, Virginia, NV5F. Virginia, your thoughts on characterization and acting for Night of the Living Dead from 1968.
NV5ICX, NV5F. So I will start with the question about why the ghouls don't eat each other. I'm not a big zombie aficionado, so I haven't watched a lot of zombie movies, but I've always felt like zombies kind of have, despite the fact that they seem just kind of dumb and slow and single-minded about wanting to eat people or eat their brains or whatever the particular flavor of zombies is, they seem to have this collective intelligence where they're all in it together. They don't attack each other. They're all out to get, the good guys. It's just kind of the way zombies are. So I think that's just what you have to accept about them. As far as characters, Johnny was annoying. I think the reason he was annoying was because it kept you from being too distraught when he's making fun of this, old guy in the cemetery that, he's trying to scare his sister, and then the guy ends up, killing him, and it keeps you from being, I guess, too distraught when he's on. The Barbara character, after we got back past the initial part of her, the typical horror movie stuff, or her shoes off or whatever, once they're in the house, she does that's good acting. I actually am gonna kind of disagree with, I think it was Bill. I think that an actor with no dialogue is challenged more than someone who has a lot to say. They have to really be able to act, and I think that her acting was very good because she was catatonic, practically catatonic at times, and she couldn't say anything. And so I actually, and then the part where I think it was mentioned earlier, where she's trying to recount what happened, and it's obvious her memory isn't very good because she, you know, she's just in shock, you know, so her memory of everything and how it happened. You know, she keeps saying, Johnny has the keys. You know, we can't drive the car because Johnny has the keys. It's like she forgot that she even got in the car and drove it away, you know. There's some weird realism to that. I didn't think it was a continuity error. I think it was intentional. Ben's character, like people have said, he's competent. He's trying his best to make good decisions. Some of the stuff he chooses to do, you're like, well, you know, but hey, I wasn't there. I think the contrast between the two couples that were down in the basement, you had the new young marriage, the couple that were young and beautiful and, you know, fairly in love, versus the older couple who obviously they made it really clear that they didn't have a good marriage, and their daughter, who was sick, was probably the one thing that was holding their marriage together. It was obvious that they didn't have a happy marriage, and the actors did a good job of portraying that. I thought that even the people playing the zombies, I mean, you know, they were pretty good. All of the, you know, I think the characters were pretty good. The acting was pretty good. The movie had its predictable sort of cheesy moments, but I mean, it's a horror cult classic, and I thought that when I went into it, I thought it was going to be, you know, one of those things that is so bad that people love it, and it's actually, I think it's a classic because it's actually a pretty good movie, and even like y'all were saying, even down to the media people and the government officials and the sheriff and even the guys who were out with their guns, you know, shooting zombies, you know, you could tell they were just doing what they had to do. It wasn't unrealistic, and you know, I thought it was pretty realistic to just say, hey, you know, show up with your clothes on, you know, your regular clothes that you normally wear, you know, just show up. And yeah, I won't make it too long, but I thought that the Ben character, I liked that it wasn't played as a racial thing. There were moments where, when it was him and the Cooper character, there were moments when it felt like it had a little bit of that vibe to it, like, you know, overbearing white guy, you know, versus competent black guy. You know, there was a little bit of that feel, but I don't think that was intentional. I think that was just how those characters were, and the color of their skin was not made into an issue. And for that day and time, I actually think that was a pretty good choice. And I think that it was just really K5 Ice to the Net, NV5F.
Thank you, Virginia. Good comments. Next is Alan, NG5Y. Your thoughts on characterization and or the acting from KE5ICX?
Well, I thought the actor who played Ben was excellent, and I thought for a 1960s movie that it wasn't in any way, or at least not to my observation, racially, I'm looking for the right word here. There wasn't any racial overtones in that way to it. And the actress who played Judith, or Barbara, I mean, Judith was the actress's name. I thought she did a very good job. It was very believable, and you didn't feel like they were acting. You felt like you were actually watching something. I'm going to probably hang it up for the night. I enjoyed the net. Back to net, NG51.
All right, thank you, Alan. Thank you for your comments. I'm glad to have you back this week. Hope you'll be back next week. Next is Cruz, KI5KWG. Cruz, your thoughts on characterization and or the acting from KE5I6.
Hello, India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf. Yeah, on the plot hole I suggested, it was just that, you know, when I get a hankering for it, I'm sorry, the joke is there, I had to say it. Okay. Well, my point was is that, you know, you're beating on a door, clawing at a door, and the lady next to you clawing on the door, it seems like that would suffice. But, and I wanted to take a step back. I thought it interesting that the Venus probe and the radiation being brought to Earth, this film came out a year or two, I think, before Michael Crichton's The Andromeda Strain, which had a very similar plot device. Okay, characterization. The acting I thought was very, very good on all of the leads. The opening scene with the brother and sister, I thought what a great job on character development with that dialogue. It turns out it was not scripted dialogue. Probably it was completely ad-libbed, and they did a very good job at that. On Barb's character, very, very subtle. They're lighting a cigarette in front of her, and she starts the flame each time, and I thought that was great foreshadowing. And she did such a good job on keeping it subtle. But Ben, Barb, Johnny, and the sheriff all get special notice from me. I thought their acting was really good and kind of surprising that they weren't famous outside of the franchise for this. I've got on this KI5, KWG, back to net.
All right, thank you, Cruz. Good comments. Next is Sean, KB9SOK. Your thoughts on characterization and the acting from KE5IC.
Okay. Yeah, it's been pretty well said already. I think Virginia kind of nailed on the head with all those characters. Yeah, it was definitely, I think it was very well acted, especially for a low-budget film. And I didn't recognize any of these actors, so maybe they went on to do big things. But I do think it was very well acted. Like I said, the one part I thought felt a little out of place when she started to tell her story, and our lead there got upset with her. But once again, he was obviously heavily stressed trying to get things done, and she really wasn't helping. Now, as usual, I don't know why all these films back in the 50s and 60s felt like in every movie you had to have a woman faint someplace. So I felt that was a little out of place. I understand her being upset, but in the 50-some years I've been on this planet, I've never seen a woman faint. I don't know why they thought that was a thing back then, but it must have been something. But yeah, no, all in all, it was definitely a well-balanced story. You know, you had the couple that the young couple that were happy, as I said earlier, and the older couple that wasn't happy, and you know, and yeah, the brother and sister felt like a real brother and sister. You know, even as you get older, sometimes you still kind of mess with each other and tease each other like you were kids. So yeah, the whole thing felt very natural, and that was, as everybody said, I think it was really one of the best things about this film. But yeah, for a low-budget film, I'd say I was kind of impressed and enjoyed it overall. Back to net, this is KB9SOK.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Thank everybody for those comments on that, on characterization. I'm not going to add any more to it. I think everybody's pretty much covered it. I will give special mention to Dwayne Jones and playing Ben. I thought he did an excellent job. Pulled up some of the performances along the way. He just played it exactly the way it should have been played. And I guess he wrote some of the dialogue along the way because he felt the way it was written didn't make any sense for him, and I think I give him a lot of credit for it. Overall, I was impressed with the overacting in the film. Okay, well, we are very late this evening, but that's okay. What I'm going to do, rather than go down the list, this is the last section. I'm going to go ahead and take call signs in order for any final comments, including special effects. Anything you want to bring to the final round. So I will allow folks to check in, and I'll take you in that, or folks to give their call sign, and I'll take it in that order. Anybody with final comments, please come with your call now.
So Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey.
Kilo India 5, Kilo Whiskey Golf.
Hey, I've got KG5BZW, that's Jay, and KI5KWG Cruz. We'll start with those two, and I'll ask one more time after that. So, Jay, KG5BZW, go ahead with your comments.
Okay, anyway, finish up. Right. I'm laughing at myself for about to do something. There is something kind of interesting about the first scene, and it is a plot hole, but if any imperfection to the movie is that it seems like this. I can see why the director did this, because I think it is needed, kind of set the mood. It doesn't make any sense, but it does set the mood. It really doesn't make any sense. In fact, and then at the same time, it also lowers your expectations a bit. And when you're presented with, oh, Hank, this is an interesting story. Yeah, I don't know if that bit was intentional. But you know, there's the start of the film where again we're meeting the first school, and the brother is getting around with his sister, and he has this thunder, like there's a storm around. And I'm looking at these scenes and like, where's the storm? Where's the storm? And it really doesn't look like there's any storm. And so I'm kind of thinking they may have added the thunder to those scenes after the almost as an afterthought, because you know otherwise you got it's just too plain with a ghoul not really doing much, and you know you need something to set the mood, and they added those storm effects. And then, you know, it's like, what happened to the storm? It's not even mentioned any further. But at the same time, I think it's like, I wouldn't understand why, because like, it really does fit the mood. So it's like, okay. Otherwise, I mean, I thought the sound quality, whatever, Foley, whatever. But one thing that it's just so interesting to me, just how it's like I can't really figure it seems so wrong, but I can't figure out a way around it either. So it's just I don't want to bring that up, and that's really all. Yeah, I love the film. Otherwise, get you by BGW.
Okay, thank you, Jay. And last but not least is KI5KWG. Cruz, your comments, please.
KI5KWG, just a brief anecdote. I've seen the meme, maybe some of y'all have, in the ham radio world, in case of emergency, grab a Baofeng and run into the woods. Yeah, I think there's a t-shirt out like that. And that made me think of this in this film setting, especially the ending. Years and years ago, I worked with an ROTC group, not too far from here, one of their babysitters, if you will, for that group. And I look back on that and I go, yeah, if that group was out there with all those guns, they'd have definitely shot the good guy. That's just how they were. So That's all I've got. KI5, KWG, back to net.
Thank you, Cruz. And you know, that I forgot to mention this maybe on the thing, but I'll make this really quick. And that is that there's the fog of war, and in this case, this developed over in less than 24 hours, and people are trying to bring order to the galaxy, and they're out shooting everything that's moving, making no between man and zombie or whatever they were, ghouls. And I just thought that was rather interesting and somewhat dangerous, but that happens. All right, and that may be kind of one of the narratives of the film that came out. Okay, well, I want to say, anyone else have any comments before I close?
NV5F.
V5F, Virginia, get the final word. Go ahead.
Well, Tony mentioned Doc Boat, and all I have to say is, after talking about this movie for an hour and a half, I might need to watch a good submarine movie to get my mind on something else before I go to bed. Good night, everyone, in V5F.
Thank you, Virginia. And amazingly, I just watched that film about 2 weeks ago. It was on, I forget what it was, on one of the streaming, continuously streaming stations on the internet. And it was rediscovered. It was quite a good film. Okay, this is what we're doing next week. You get light reading. You get a short one. It's only an hour long. I found this online, and I thought I would expose the group to it. There was a television show called Search, and it had a science fiction premise to it, where they solved mysteries using lots of technology that was available, sort of a Mission Impossible, only it was all miniaturized in 1972. So the first episode, the Murrow disappearance, of course this was from a movie called Probe, which I couldn't find, but I did find Search, the television series. So it'll still give you a pretty good idea. So you I will put information up on the Afterglow movie Facebook page, and I'll also send it to you in email with the links. So I'm going to say 7-3 to everybody. A great discussion tonight. I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad we finally saw a good film. Brenda's not here, so what does that mean, that we saw a good film? I don't know. We'll have to ask her. Okay. 7-3, everybody. We'll see you next time. This is KE5 ICX. I'm going to go watch Lost in Space and West of Mars. Bye-bye and bye-bye.
Hey, Tom, I was distracted. Did you just say the name for the film for next week? If so, I just was distracted and missed it. Inside BB.
Actually, this is from a television show from 1972. It's the first episode of a kind of a sci-fi-esque series called Search, S-E-A-R-C-H. The name of the episode is The Murrow Disappearance from 1972.
Thanks. I think I have a very vague remembrance of that series, but it's so vague, I'm going to have to look at it and see if it matches my memory. Okay. Thanks a lot. And I was surprised, as you can tell, I was surprised by this movie. I thought it would be a pretty, basic, B movie with poor directing and poor script and poor acting, but you can see we all liked it. Thanks, Tom. I'm glad I saw it, because I'd heard about it, and I thought I'd seen it, but I hadn't. Good evening. Inside BB clear.
I agree with you, Bill. I enjoyed it. I think it was pretty much universal. Everyone did enjoy it. So, and we all had our own little reasons why. Okay, time to go watch Lost in Space. 7-3. See you next time. This is KE5 ICX. Bye-bye.